I couldn't be any more excited right now.
Those hands were filled with poop-stained underwear, which he allegedly smeared on the face of his victim.
Do you realize what percentage of your opening conversations are about bathrooms, Merrill?
Sometimes when you look through the little hole between the stalls, you can see another guy. You should just look him in the eyes the entire time.
I think you have the wrong expectations for what's going to go down here. We're going off the rails here. Maybe football instead.
As always, next year. Happy Absurdity Day, everybody, and welcome back to the Sandlot Cast. Here we are, Week 12, the final week of our regular season in our Sandlot Fantasy Football League. This podcast talks only about our Sandlot Fantasy Football League, so you don't have to. With me this week, I got Anthony. Welcome back, Anthony. It's been a while, man.
It has been an emotional roller coaster for me, and I'm back. I'm back for the final podcast of the regular season. I'm looking forward to it. I'm happy to be with you, gentlemen, once again.
We missed you. We got the whole band back together. We got Hillers back, too. What's going on, Hillers?
Yeah, what an absurdity week it has been.
It has.
Yeah, starting with your lower face there, man. Where did Badger go to sleep down there?
I started growing it, and I won 8 fantasy games in a row, so I'm not shaving it.
Seriously? That's your fantasy beard?
Yeah, yes.
Oh, dude, that is pretty absurd.
My playoff started in Week 7, I told you. So I could lose again, and I haven't. So I ain't shaving it.
It's hard to tell when your face ends and where your balls begin.
How about the chest hair? Will that help?
It won't help.
No.
It rarely does.
No. Yeah. You should start like a pigeon dynasty.
Yeah. So yeah, it's good to have you guys back. We got 1 week to go. We got I think like 7 teams in contention and 5 out, which is I think more than last year. At this point last year, everything was decided already. So kind of nice
close
to have a little bit of uncertainty.
Is it?
For some of us, it's the greatest thing we could have hoped for.
Yeah, Anthony, you've been doing okay, man. Some of the league people have been worried about you since your tragic loss to the Weenyay.
I appreciate the concern. I'm doing okay.
That's good.
I think we need an intervention.
You want to share how you dealt with your depressed mood today?
Oh, today? Well, yeah. I took the day off of work and I caught wild lobster in the ocean.
Yeah.
And I ate some of those.
I hate you so much.
Is that
32 degrees here this morning.
Is that what that headband is about then, the lobstering? Is that your sea fisherman gear?
It is. It is the official, attire of Key West.
Gotcha.
Well, just remember, anytime you can go out and catch live lobster, on your front porch, things can only be so bad. So,
if live lobster were swarming my house like the zombie hordes, I would have trouble catching live lobster.
Well, they'd catch you. So
someone would get eaten. That's a fact.
So we'll try to move things along this podcast as usual. Brad put in an interesting rules point or proposal today that prompted a discussion. We'll get into that a little bit, and but we're going to do team overviews hopefully pretty quickly, although that never really happens. We'll do our rule discussion, we'll do our power rankings, then we'll do our predictions for the final week of the season. So we'll see how things go. So that said, let's get into the team overviews here, and we're going to start with the kind of the, I don't want to say the bottom of the barrel, but the non-contenders. I just said bottom of the barrel. So
it is the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
We all know who they are.
Get out the scraper.
The non-contenders, scrape them off the pavement here, the carcasses of teams that are still left in our league here. And we'll start where, if you're going to start there, you got to start with the Weenyay Masters of, beating Anthony. So
Masters of beating Anthony.
This past week, they lost to TDJ 95-136. They've been putting up more respectable points recently, but nonetheless, they're still 3-12, last place in the league in pretty much everything. Lowest points for, most points against.
Hey, that's a plus for them. They won. They're going to win the minigame hands down.
Yeah.
For most points, there's $35 right there, man.
Yeah,
so good job, Andy.
So that's what we're going to do with these bad teams.
You'll definitely be helping your case by starting Brian Leonard this week.
Real quick, we'll look at the bad teams and try to figure out what reason for encouragement there might be going into next year. I mean, we've kind of beaten on these guys the past few weeks, and we'll maybe see if you're this person, and we'll start with you, Anthony. I guess if you're Andy and you're looking at your team now, is there any kind of signs of encouragement or anything you feel good about maybe going into next season?
No. Well, I mean,
Ooh.
well, here.
Yeah, that's pretty close.
I mean, I think that we're all in agreement that his keepers that we've identified several weeks now. In McCoy, in Gronk, in Djax, maybe and maybe I don't know, maybe
Hilton?
not T.Y. Hilton. But the thing is,
No.
his other guys. I mean, but the problem with all those guys is they're all kind of expensive, and you really could go either way on them. What he needs to find that dollar guy that hits, and now he's got maybe a foundational type of player. And what he's doing is he's trying. He's definitely trying. There's just nobody out there.
Yeah.
Blackman for a buck. I doubt he'll even play in the NFL ever again.
Yeah, he may not.
So if that's his best bet, I don't think he has any. He doesn't have anything new to say, anything new good to say about his team.
I think Blackman was spotted up in Toronto, hanging out with the mayor up there. What's his name? Rob Ford. And
Rob
Justin
Ford.
Blackman, I think, are pretty tight. So, Hillers, what about you, man? Any reason for encouragement here?
No.
If it's no, then it's no.
No.
Okay.
Riley Cooper.
Really?
Is
Riley
he still
Cooper?
on his team? Hey, if Nick Foles stays the quarterback in Philadelphia, and he's got him for $5, then he's got 2 starting wide receivers.
Okay. Yeah, but they're both Eagles.
They're both Eagles.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a problem. Maybe you can trade one for somebody equivalent. And you got Gronk and LaShawn McCoy, so there's 4 starters.
Yeah.
And it's not the worst. That wouldn't be awful starters.
I don't think there's any way he keeps Riley Cooper at all, but I think he goes with. I think LaShawn McCoy is kind of a foundational player, Anthony.
Why wouldn't you keep Riley Cooper? Ever since Nick Foles has been playing, this guy's been playing pretty much lights out, except for last week at Washington.
I might keep him for $8. I might do it.
Maybe, but I'd rather keep T.Y. Hilton, honestly.
No
than
way.
Riley Cooper.
I would
T.Y. Hilton.
wait to see how the rest of the season goes. Nick Foles loves himself some Riley Cooper.
Why no way? T.Y. Hilton's like a top 20 receiver this year, isn't he?
No, he's
No.
not at all.
No.
T.Y. Hilton's been terrible, and he's had
2 good games and 1 adequate game.
Yeah,
And that's it.
honestly, he's been really bad. You should check out those stats, and for $20, that's money better spent elsewhere.
I checked out the stats, and he's the number 17 receiver on the season. So
Then things have gone awry.
ahead of
Yeah.
Torrey Smith, ahead of Eric Decker, ahead of Larry Fitzgerald, ahead of.
Again,
But
2 good
Mike-
games, 1 adequate game.
But Mike, yeah, look at this. I mean, he went 30 points in 2 games, and then he's had the majority of sub 5-point games. That's the kind of player that you don't want on your team.
I'm looking at
Well,
least
but a lot
5
of guys-
games under 5
no.
points. That's not the kind of guy you need.
3 of his last 5 have been double digit. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's not, but for $20, maybe you're right. Yeah.
So it's
I don't
not
know
as
if he was
big a
that much.
disaster as everybody thinks. I think you can put 4 solid keepers together on this team and move forward next year. It's just he hasn't got anything to trade,
Yeah.
and he's gonna need to be a little bit more circumspect in his drafting. But he doesn't have extra guys, so it shouldn't be a problem. Just
Yeah.
spend the money in the right places, and this is a perfectly respectable team.
He's going to have a lot of draft money, theoretically, so that should help. Maybe he can, he's 1 draft in now. Maybe he can turn that around. But let's not spend too much time here on the wing. Let's move on to. One more thing. Sorry. When I sent out that comment about make sure you're trying the rest of the season, I think Andy might have thought that was targeted, and I want to say for the record it was not. That's just a general. That's just a general thing we like to send out. I mean, I know Anthony, you mentioned that to me about certain teams possibly giving up. Maybe not being 100%.
Now,
so I
a
felt
toilet
like
bowl
sending
victory is
that
big
out
this year. You get to waive one of your keeper fees if you win the toilet bowl this year.
Well, it's not just that. I mean, there's every game has a even if you don't win or lose your opponent, it may matter for your opponent. So
Sure. I think everybody in our league is good with that, though. But
I
it's
do
a
too.
solid reminder.
Yeah, it wasn't directed at anybody, just a general, play the season out kind of thing.
And so I actually have a comment with respect to that, but I'll get there when that person's team comes up.
Okay. Chupanibras is our next team here. They lost to Peanut Butter Jelly Time by 2 points, 106-104, on a Greg Olson touchdown on Monday night.
What a sad
This is-
display this was.
That's his comment of Well, it's 106 to 104. I wouldn't say sad display, but
No,
that brings
because
him.
it wasn't so futile.
Yeah,
Almost going anywhere.
goes to 3-12 on the year. He's the second worst team in the league right now. The hits have just kind of kept coming for this team. It seems like it just keeps piling on and piling on here. Hillers, we'll start with you here. Is there any reason for encouragement for JD heading into the toilet bowl and into the offseason?
It was a really, really tough year for JD. JD caught some bad breaks, and then the overall not very greatness of his team really put his heel down on him. I mean, we all thought guys like Matt Ryan and Trent Richardson and, maybe even Hakeem Nicks, Tony Gonzalez would do well, and, maybe even he hit on something with Eddie Royal when he spent all his money on Eddie Royal, but no, none of that happened. And then the only thing left out of the wreckage is maybe Welker and, I don't know, Antonio Brown, maybe?
I think Antonio Brown is legit.
Yeah, I mean, at
$11,
$11, I don't see how you don't keep him with his sort of late season
He's
resurgence.
top 10 right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's been kicking ass. So he's got 2 receivers, but that's a really rough place to start. I mean, in terms of next year, I think he's even harder up right now than the Winier is. And it's just really bad luck. I mean, these people were highly rated at the beginning of this year, and he's had some good games and some close games. The last time he played Brett, didn't he play him to a tie, and now he loses by 3 points from some Greg Olson super
epic meaningless battles. Yeah.
I mean, it's just crazy, and I feel bad for him, but it's like you're just going to have to find a way to rebuild here. There's really not much even in trade bait value-wise, unless you want to spread Welker out for multiple lesser keepers or something, but I wouldn't advise that even, just...
Yeah. Anthony, any if you're JD, you're looking at this team, is there anything that makes you say, well, it was bad this year, but at least ...
I think that he's in worse shape than Andy is, and that's because all the guys that, like Hiller said, you were supposed to count on this season just were disasters, especially Matt Ryan. So if I were JD, here's what I would do. I would keep Antonio Brown. He might be my only single keeper going into next season, and I would try to trade Welker for something else. That's what I would do, and I would just go in with a ton of draft money and kind of did what Merrill did this year in the draft, which I think was a very good draft for Merrill, where he picked up a lot of mid to high level players. He got a lot of depth for all those. So that's what I would do.
Okay. Yeah, we always say, we said a lot on this podcast that, you have a lot of cusper players, and, none of JD's cusper players went
none of them
the positive way. It was kind of like, it was like everyone either stayed where they should be or most of them even kind of regressed a little bit. So, he inherited the team, so it's not a team that he really wanted. He was pretty dependent on the Falcons, who are a dumpster fire this year, and as they went down, so did his team. So did his team's points. So while Matt Ryan, I think, will have a bounce back year, you're right, Anthony. I think in that you shouldn't keep him at his price. I mean, he's kind of a middle of the road guy anyway. So for $20, you're probably gonna be able to get him back for around that. You can buy him
for cheaper if you wanted him.
Yeah. So you throw him back, but yeah, I think Antonio Brown's a legit number one. But other than that, there's not a whole lot on this team that you can feel good about going into next season. But he'll have a ton of draft money, and maybe he can do something with that. I think it's going to be a pretty deep draft next year, actually. So, yeah. So anyway, Peanut Butter Jelly Time is our next team here. They beat the Chupa Libres on the other side of this. 106-104. Go to 5-10 on the year, third in the division. In their division, Anthony Brett took a beating this year, injury-wise.
Yeah, he really did.
Is there anything? These guys that got hurt, they might not even be keepers anymore for him, like Foster and Martin. This was a team we thought would be really strong this year. RG3.
I was terrified.
Is it a total rebuild, Anthony, for him, or is it just, is there anything looking at this team that you think he can hold on to?
Well, so it is a total rebuild, and there's no surprise in that because I think all three of us said in the beginning of the year, this is the year for Brett because he can't afford this team next year.
Yeah.
And and so what happened is it failed, but it failed like Hindenburg style where everything.
Oh, the humanity! Yes, he's the first one to ever lose 2 starting Tampa Bay running backs for like $80.
Yeah, but and Man, like this is maybe the worst injuries we've ever seen happen to a single team since I've been in this league. To lose your two star running backs, his backup, and you can even I would even tag RG3 on that list because that's sort of a franchise guy, and he's never really been the same since the ACL. Right. So yeah, I mean he's had terrible luck, man, I just can't put my finger on. Well, other than the injuries, I can't put my finger on why it didn't work out for Brett.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like RG3 has been absolutely horrific, but I don't know. I'd almost be on the fence of keeping him at 23 rather than going for a guy that also goes for that price, maybe like a Romo or something like that, because he doesn't seem like he wants to move around anymore, and that all the points that he gets are just desperation, especially if they change the coaches there. I just don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, if Kaepernick went for 26, does RG3 need to go for 23? I mean, Kaepernick.
I think Kaepernick would go back at 26.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And so I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of the crop of quarterbacks last year that people were saying was going to like revolutionize the game. You had Russell Wilson and RG3 and Kaepernick and Andrew Luck, and Andrew Luck panned out very nicely, and Russell Wilson's doing pretty well, but the other two, problems. So
yeah.
I think in general RG3 looks bad. I mean, he somehow manages to put up fantasy points, but that's because he can run around, outside of the pocket for 6 seconds until coverage breaks down, and then he just heaves the ball. Like he heaves the ball like it's in high school, like watching a backyard game.
Yeah, I was watching his game against the Eagles, and he blamed. They're like, oh, did he blame Shanahan at the end? Yeah, he did. He has never blamed himself, but he was throwing balls routinely all the time, 3-4 yards over the heads of whoever he was presumably aiming at. It was not close. He's not a pocket passer, and it seems like he doesn't want to run. So you got to ask yourself if having a healthy offseason is going to allow him to get back to where he was, or if this guy's just going to be a bust after midway through next year.
I mean, it could just be a down year. I mean, he could be Josh Freeman, who had that great first year and never been the same since, or he could be, could just be a down second year for him. He ends up bouncing back next year. Hard to say, but I think he's a throwback too. Ben Tate, I will say, I think this is a contract year for Ben Tate. He may end up on a different team and find himself as a starter, which could be good for this team.
Oh, that could be a savior for this team.
I mean, that could be huge for this team. So, or who knows what happens with Foster next year. But he's got to throw back Foster and Martin. And so I don't know. You look at this. I think these three teams we talked about. I mean, it's going to be hard to find 5 keepers on these teams. It's going to be hard to find 3 keepers on these teams. And so
it's going to be a deep draft pool. Year. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, it's just a bad luck year for Brett. His high-priced guys just didn't work out. So, Alshon Jeffrey, another nice thing that's working out for him, though. But yeah, our last non-contender at this point, who's Matt.
Wait, before you move on here, we talked about staying in contention and making sure that you're doing stuff that that can help your team in the future. And the one maybe target of that, I would. Here's my advice to JD. Right, is these are the last 2 waiver wire periods this week. It's 2 waiver wires only, and you have a second kicker on your bench, man. Like you have free agent money. Take that free agent money and just spend it on something.
Just take a guess on somebody's second string is what you want to do. It's just somebody behind someone that you don't really notice, but impossible that they get a starting job next year or that they get traded or something. It's a total crapshoot.
Well, but just go look at contract year. Go look at contract year players, like a first string guy who's on a contract year. Go pick up his backup.
That had a crappy year, right? Yes,
because he might be the guy next year.
There are 2 running backs that I've been eyeballing all season. I can't drop a running back for either one of those. So maybe you can identify one of the ones that I'm thinking about.
Marshawn Lynch is on a contract year this year. Who knows if he's back next year with Seattle, right? I mean, so he's got 2 backups that people know, and maybe those are the guys. But there are some things you can do, and if they hit, great. If not, whatever, you wasted a buck. But let's get to our last non-contender here, the light saber-toothed Tigers, who had a bad second half of the year. They lose to the Sex Cannons, and I think the beating of the week, 107-64. They fall to 6-9, but that's good enough for second place in that crappy division.
All your puppet mastery it just came to nothing, Merrill.
Yeah.
You screwed it up.
Yeah. Well, again,
got
this-
maybe
another
one of the
thing.
tougher
Well, I'd
divisions.
say nothing is predictable in fantasy football, but Hillers, if you're Nick and you're looking at your team here, is there anything you're encouraged about? Because I know it's kind of a team that Nick doesn't typically have, right? I mean, he's got
Right.
deep
No.
running back core,
Nick
and his
totally
receivers
went
are hurting.
completely un-Nick this year. Well, I think there's no reason you don't keep No Sean Moreno, AJ Green, Jordan Cameron, and probably Randall Cobb. Other than that, I don't know. You know what I mean? It's
That's a good set of keepers.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's 4 keepers.
no,
Yeah.
it's solid. It's solid. I'm not saying
not
it's
even-
bad. I'm just saying. To me, if I'm looking at Nick, this team had a bunch of promise, didn't quite make it, but he still has. It's not quite as bad as the very lowest tier of our league, and that he has good, promising stuff going forward to next season for solid keepers at good prices for what they do. So
I might even throw Tompkins on that list, and I know that he's been kind of up or down and kind of disappeared sometimes. But for
over
$8,
Green or Cobb.
Oh no, never mind. Yeah, no, you keep those two.
Okay, I
My
was going to
bad.
say. That's madness. Maybe you might be
Yeah,
able to get
but-
something for Tompkins if you threw him in a deal, if somebody wanted, I don't know, Sproles or something. But
Maybe. I'd be surprised if that happened, but it seems like once Gronk came back, Tompkins kind of lost his role in that offense a little bit.
a little bit.
Um,
It's very hard to
but,
tell what's going to go on with the Patriots next year just because of all the injuries this year. And that goes for Amendola and Dobson and Tompkins and everybody, except for Gronk,
Well-
essentially, who I think, obviously watching the last game against the Panthers, they're still looking at all the time.
So, you look at where it went bad for Nick this year. I would say, I think quarterback. I mean, he threw Drew Brees back, and didn't want to keep him, and ended up picking up Kaepernick and Vic. I mean, normally, you get Vic, you want a steady, kind of reliable guy to back him up, and he ended up with Kaepernick, who while he was great for like the second half last year, we hadn't seen much more than that, and he's kind of having the same sophomore slump RG3 had. So that's kind of where his team went. He didn't really put up bad points this year. He had a couple of duds, but overall he was putting up good points. It's just he wasn't able to get over that hump, I feel like, and maybe the quarterback was why. But yeah, with AJ Green and Randall Cobb as your receivers, and then if Moreno comes back and it's a starter again, that's even 3 pretty good keepers right there. So
Yeah.
yeah. So Anthony, I mean, is there anything you'd feel like Nick would feel good about here?
No, I mean, at this point he's put up enough poo-poo scores to have everything even out. But for some time he was getting, for maybe the first 9 weeks of the season, he was getting pretty unlucky schedule-wise.
Right.
But then he started, his team started putting up pretty bad scores, and now his breakdown has evened out with his actual winning percentage. So not much to say other than, yeah, I think you're right. He never got over the hump.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get to the contenders here, boys. We're making record time, by the way. This is great.
We've reviewed these teams, what?
Yeah.
At least 10 times now?
So here we are with the contenders, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 contenders.
I'd like to take myself out of the list of contenders if I could.
Maybe I'm even missing one. I don't know. But anyway, we'll start with the Assassins. Kind of, we'll go with maybe worst odds to best odds of making the playoffs here, I think. And
Okay.
I think Assassins probably are at the bottom of that. Not mathematically eliminated. They lost their last game 98-70 to EBS. They fall to 8-7, which is last place in the division. He needs
That's
lots of help.
crazy.
He needs to beat the Dad Dicks. He needs TDJ and Black Widows to lose, and he needs to outscore Hillers by 27, the Black Widows by 47, and TDJ by 50 in order to get into the playoffs here.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a long list of things.
It is a long list of things. So that said, Anthony, snowball's chance, right?
Yeah, and by the way, I called this in what is it, Real Deal Noshka Peel, that he was gonna be he was just gonna miss it because of various things, because he's Watson, and that happens to Watson occasionally.
Right.
No,
You can't just run away from that legacy. It'll find you.
Yeah.
and again, I think the Brady alert is still going off, and that was his downfall.
Yeah, it's like he's always got Brady kind of lurking in the background there, walking around and kind of just lurking.
Yeah, if only he'd have listened to you and started Big Ben, he would have crushed this game. 40 points on the bench.
So Hitler's, I mean, we kind of established, I guess, not a great chance here. Is there anything going into next year where you feel like the Assassins maybe can feel good about?
The receivers I gave him are still pretty nice.
Yeah.
I don't know if you keep Torrey Smith at $19, but Jordy Nelson at $19, sure, definitely.
Right.
And it kind of depends what happens with the running back situation in Arizona. I don't know if you want a guy who can get his scalp ripped off like that by a Jaguar, no less.
He had more dreads pulled out than rushing yards, I think.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
But he is very cheap. I do think you just got to give up the ghost on Brady. I can't imagine him being worth $39, still being so uncertain with the rushing or with the receiving game there going into next year. You just don't know who's going to be dominant there. And I can't imagine, and maybe he'll defy me once again, because I said this last year that he keeps AP at what would be $62, which I think would be at least among the highest, if not the highest salary ever paid in the auction era of the Sandler.
Right. So that's interesting, though, Anthony. I mean, what do you think of AP at that price?
So in general, if it were me, maybe if it were my team or another team, you may keep AP at 62. It's not outrageous, right? But in Brad's case, there's a couple silver lining pieces that.
It's not outrageous, but we've never had a player worth that much. I don't know how you don't throw him back in the draft and see if anyone's willing to throw up a 60 number when most people are working with $100 in the draft in its entirety.
Well, so here's what I would do if I were Assassins: is that Vereen, you didn't mention Vereen. Vereen is down there, and I think that Vereen is going to have a future with the Patriots. He'd be with $13 to keep. I think that's your number one keeper, running back wise. And for Ellington, 12 for Ellington. Why? That's probably flyer, numbers.
That's almost in flyer territory, right?
So now you have two running back keepers for under $30. Now you can afford, bidding as high as you want on a guy like AP and sticking with that whole core. So I think
is that what you would do? Because he failed with this core.
Yeah, that is what I would do.
He failed because of Brady.
He failed because of Brady because he paid way too much money on him. So
and Steven Jackson too.
And yeah, right. So that is what I would do, and then maybe you pick up a better quarterback, and now you essentially have still a solid team going into next year. So.
And let's not forget, Hiller, every week this year you were saying how scared you were of this team.
I was terrified, but it didn't work.
Right. So when you say he failed, he didn't fail by much. I mean, he was.
I didn't fail by much either. I still failed.
Right, but that's a couple of breaks here and there, and maybe it works out. I mean, I'll agree he didn't have the best strategy, and maybe he did get a little lucky here and there. But I would keep Adrian Peterson. I think if he gets, here's the thing with Adrian Peterson. I think if he gets thrown back, he goes for over 60 because you don't know you're getting
over
number
60.
one. Yeah, you don't know you're getting the number one player in the league with Adrian Peterson, but you know you're getting a top 5 running back, right? I mean, he's not going to be one. He's having a down year this year, and he's the number 5 running back overall. Like, that's what you know you're getting. I mean, it's kind of the LaDainian Tomlinson thing. Like, it seemed like he was never the number 1 pick. There was always some flashy guy that was ahead of him, but he always finished in the top 3 running backs every year. I think he's worth it. I mean, if it were me and I had the cash, I'd spend $65 to get him back next year. I mean, somebody will spend that. I mean, because he's that good. So I would keep him, and depending on what happens with Mendenhall, I'd probably go Ellington. The Patriots backfield thing to me is it's just there's too many cooks in the kitchen in that backfield. There's like 4 running backs, and you don't know which one every week is going to be the guy. So
or every year.
Or every year, yeah. I mean who knows? Who knows what's going to change between now and then? So maybe Vereen is the guy. They clearly like him there. But
I had a lot of faith in this team just because of its high-profile starters, but I agree that the Brady thing never kicking in, and some of the running back situation not really clicking, and that whole Steven Jackson situation definitely not giving you $50 worth of points there at one game over 10 points all season, and most of it hurt. So
Anthony, one question for you. We poo-pooed this guy in the past, but Ruben Randall's down there on the bench for $1. What do you think of that?
As a Giants fan, I don't like Ruben Randall because Ruben Randall has caused the Giants to lose
Strife.
Poor route running, and instead it turns into picks for Eli, right? So every time he gets a touchdown, it kills me because it just solidifies his spot on the Giants for years to come.
Yeah.
Okay, so all that said, maybe Ruben Randall is there to stay.
Yeah.
Here's 2 minutes of hate by Ruben Randall, followed by a Ruben Randall endorsement.
He gets 3. In the last 4 games, he's had no more than 3 targets in any game. Like, it's so weird, but he puts up. He's a red zone guy, I guess, right? I mean, that's his deal.
He's not even. I mean, he's only 6'2", so it's funny that he's considered a red zone. I mean, I guess he's the slot guy, right? So, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what to think about Ruben Randall.
Yeah.
For if he was your $4 guy, yeah, right. I mean, you could do worse for $4, right?
Yeah, because Hakeem Nicks is a contract year for Nicks, I think. So if he's gone next year, that makes him more appealing, right? I mean,
yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, I could totally see his keepers being Ellington, Vereen, Nelson, Randall.
That's it.
And that's it.
I think he's keeping Peterson. But
I think you should just go ahead and prove to someone that they will buy Peterson at $62. Make someone
Frank
prove
Gore
that to
went
you.
for 58 one year. You don't think Peterson will go for
1
62?
year. Yeah. Well, no one went for 51
MJD went
this
for
year.
50, and MJD is terrible. So
this is a scarce year.
Yeah.
Next year will be much fuller
Maybe.
than the running back area. Yeah.
Maybe. All right, next team here, Hiller's Epidemic, who puts up a absurd amount of points for the starting lineup he put out there, 122 to 73. His team.
The last days.
Goes to 8-7. This is the team that will not die. Goes to second in the division. And here's what he needs to happen to make the playoffs. Hillers needs to beat TDJ, and then he also needs either a Hitmen loss, or if the Hitmen win, needs to outscore them, or Hitmen, sorry, the Black Widows win, he needs to outscore the Black Widows by 21. And he needs an Assassin's loss, or the Assassins to win and not outscore him by 27. So kind of confusing, but you need.
Essentially, if I beat Pritchard, I'm in real good shape. You'd have to outscore me by 21.
No, you'd have to outscore me by 21 if I. win.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So.
Well, that's probably not going to happen.
Well, maybe. Maybe, but yeah, I mean, your main goal is to beat Pritchard. So Anthony, Hillers gave up on his team a couple weeks ago, and we'll get to Hillers, see if he still feels that way about it. But here he is at 8-7, basically a game out of the playoffs. What do you think about him selling Brandon Marshall and how he kind of ended his regular season here?
Well, so I'm happy. Bear with me. I'll do what I can here. I think that losing Brandon Marshall might have been a little bit more of a lateral move because Cruz is maybe a guy that's just as good, though hasn't been performing as well, right? So it's not a complete fire sale for Hillers necessarily. And probably getting rid of Amendola is probably a blessing because now it's like a guy maybe.
Right.
Yeah, maybe.
Right, because now you're not going to start him and he's going to get injured after the first play, right? So maybe that's kind of a blessing. So I do think Hillers lucked in.
Uh-oh.
Because I'm having problems bringing it up, but Hillers, I think he had a low score in Week 10. Is that right? Yeah, 79.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you went 1-1, I think.
Yeah, 79, and I went 1-1 because I played the Wien-Yay.
Oh, Christ. So you managed to win that game, and then you managed to win another game because of Bobby Rainey went nuts. So now, you just...
And Mike Glennon.
And Mike Glennon's right, but I'm not going to win. I'm not going to win playoff games on the backs of Bobby Rainey and Mike Glennon. I just don't believe that.
So let's hope you can get a couple of dollars out of it and just be on your way.
Right.
I know somebody who got to the championship with Tim Tebow as his quarterback, so let's not poo-poo Bobby.
At this point, my opinion is if I make it to the playoff, that would be more hilarious than justified. You know what I mean? Because this team has been badly mismanaged. You know what I mean?
Funny part would be is that it'll be on the back of Bobby Rainey, who, has been
It was my biggest botch.
the butt of jokes for 5 weeks now, and all of a sudden now you look like you were ahead of the curve.
And what if he put up another 30 spot, and then people were asking me to trade for him
So that was pretty much, you spent like all your money on Bobby Rainey. Was that your strategy? Like, look, people made fun of me early in the year. Now he's available again. I've got to spend on him because if he pans out and he's not on my team, I'll look like a fool.
Well, not so much that I'll look like a fool as how funny would it be if he did pan out and I ended up winning some games as a result of Bobby Rainey.
Right.
And, it would be really, really funny. And also, I kind of wanted to win at least one more game, just to get self-respect in there. Like, I wasn't seeing if I had free agents that I wanted to acquire and thought would be good for the off-season, after I lost that doubleheader in week, 7, things were bad. And when I couldn't come 2-0 out of the one in week 10, I said, okay, I just don't buy it anymore. You know what I mean? I did my points analysis on all my guys and said, okay, at this point it's too late.
Well, that was past the trade deadline, though, week 10. So.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, it was.
Was it?
Yeah.
Well, whatever. I mean, I was doing the analysis a little ways back, and it just didn't seem like I was going to get there. And frankly, I still don't think I'm going to get there. I mean, because the list of circumstances you pointed out is pretty steep. Now, had I left myself enough $1 to get a defense to play Pritchard, I'd probably be about 10 points better off.
How do you not look ahead and like get a defense for your bye week?
It was actually a subtraction error. Rather than a strategy error, which
because
I don't know.
Normally, you're very big on defense and the strategy that goes into picking a good one, and how you'll spend an extra $1 or $2 to get a good one. I mean,
so I don't know if it's an excuse for me that it was math rather than strategy, but I actually thought I was going to have $1 left to pick one up, and I didn't. But even then, it's like I think his team is just way outplaying me right now. God knows what the scoring projections on Calvin Johnson and Des Bryant are for next week. I mean, I'm pretty sure they're exceeding the likes of Jared Boykin. You know what I mean? It's just that's where I'm at.
Okay. So
I
real
made
quick,
peace with it.
Yes or no here? Any regrets on the trade of Marshall and Amendola for Cruz?
No, not on that trade.
Okay.
A small regret
Yes or
on
no?
the Morris-Thomas trade.
All right.
But they're actually pretty equal in points.
So. Morris and you mean the other one? Okay. Yeah.
Morris and Thomas.
Yeah. Morris and Thomas are not equal in points at all. Morris
they're like within 3 points of each other.
No.
Yes.
Not close.
Yes.
Do your math again. Black Widows is our next team here.
I'm looking it up.
Look it up. They beat the well, look it up from when the trade happened onward, not on the season.
No.
Because that's what
no, I refuse to do that.
Yeah.
Now you're changing the bar, as you love to do.
I did what's called selling high on
It's 119 to 122 on the season.
Yeah. Well, now look because that includes you traded Morris after his bye week. Anyway, Black Widows is our next team here. They beat the Dad Dicks 105 to 84, makes it 7 in a row for my team from 1-7 to 8-7. Third place in the division at 8-7. Here's what needs to happen. I need to beat EBS, and I need Hillers to beat TDJ and not outscore me by 21 in doing it. Or TDJ loses and scores 4 points less. Actually, also, TDJ has to score 4 points less than me on the week. And Assassins lose to Dad Dicks or don't outscore me by 47 points. So it's kind of a complicated web there. But basically what needs to happen is I need to beat EBS and Hillers, who needs to beat Richard.
Essentially, Merrill, I'm taking you down with me.
Yeah.
If I lose, you lose too.
Pretty much,
so
yeah.
I'm dragging us both to the toilet bowl, buddy.
So, yeah, I know it.
If I can't go to the playoffs, you can't go to the playoffs.
So, Anthony, I don't know. I mean, what can be said about this team that hasn't been said already? I mean, it's kind of been a roller coaster.
How about Afghanistan?
I don't know. I mean, any recent thoughts on this team? It's been a while since you've been on the podcast.
Well, I mean, it's really nice that you're on this super hot winning streak, and I guarantee you're going to beat me this week. Guarantee it.
Well, yeah. Okay.
So great job. But as we said, when you were 1-7, it might, no matter what you do, it might be too little, too late. So that comes back at you. Don't you wish you could save all of these wins for next season?
Yeah.
You did everything right, Merrill, for a team that was on a giant losing streak. Your team right now is ferocious, and no one would want to play it. You know what I mean? With even guys like Zach Stacy and Harry Douglas just waiting on your bench, it's like there are teams that we've listed already that would love to have those teams as keepers next year. And to you, they're like throwaways now with Harvin back and Charles and Morrison there and everything. It's crazy. So.
Yeah.
Congrats.
So the thing is, Mike. Yeah, I mean, you're probably looking forward to having a serious shot at the toilet bowl, which means you get to waive a keeper fee, and that is equivalent to about $7. So that's
$5.
That's real good. Well, but no.
No, because it's not the $2. Yeah.
But the reason I say it's $7 is because you can, if you're keeping two of the same position. And I'll look at your team, for example. You say you can assign Morris the 3, and Charles gets 0, right? So
instead of $5.
Instead of 5. So it's almost like kind of netting 7 in some ways.
I don't see that, but
that makes no
salary would
sense.
go up by 5, and it doesn't go up by 5. How does that net 7?
Well, it's some fuzzy logic.
Okay. I was told there'd be no math.
Fuzzy/wrong. Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, that will be nice. I mean, I'm still thinking I'm gonna make it. So I think I need Hillers to come through for me, but that
has failed so many people.
Holding on to hope. When I was 1-7, I said my playoffs start today. That was week 7 before the week 7 doubleheader. So
I love your charge though. It's inspirational. I hope you make it. I just don't think you will.
I'm going to have some tough keeper decisions, I think, going into next year because it's like, I've got Morris, Charles, and Stacy, and then I've got James Jones, Percy Harvin, and Josh Gordon. So that's, and then I've got Jake Locker and Russell Wilson, so that one's going to be tough.
Got a lot of trade bait, though. Look at it that way.
Yeah, I was kidding on Jake Locker. David Wilson sitting down there on my IR.
No one wants him. Yeah. Everyone has forgotten about him.
Right, yeah, including the Giants. So, we'll see. That's should be interesting. But, okay, next team here is the Touchdown Jesus, who I left off my sheet for some reason. Basically, if they win, they're in. Can't really stop that. So, I think that's as simple as it gets. But their record now, they're 9-6. They beat the Wiener 136-95. Put up a monster week in one of Cam Newton's on weeks. Calvin Johnson doing what Calvin Johnson does, and
one of his on weeks, which looks like a quarterback on week.
Right. I mean, his stud's just kind of coming through here, so he's got the quickest path to the playoffs as far as like the not sure things here, Hillers. Touchdown Jesus. Is this a team that can go all the way?
A few weeks ago I would have said no, but he's had a few things go right for him at the exact right time of the year. Chris Ivory sort of seized the reins as the Jets running back and got a bunch of carries there, and ever since he started doing that, has been great. 2 games worth of great. He really fumbled it against Cincinnati, but I mean, and then he had a bye. But I mean, they're not giving Bilal Powell the ball anymore. Obviously, Geno Smith can't be relied upon. They're going to want to hold leads and keep offenses off the board, so that's a great guy. Ryan Matthews looks like he might be able, if they just give him enough carries and he doesn't botch it, to put up games in the low teens.
Yeah, RB2.
RB3, because Forte is doing great. And Calvin Johnson somehow has kicked it up a notch from being the best wide receiver in football to some new level that I don't even know what to do with anymore. So his entire starting lineup has gone to really upsetting.
So Anthony, this is you've hated this team all year. Here they are. They're a cusper on the edge of the playoffs. You still hate them?
No, I think they're going to have a...
You didn't ask me that. I still hate them. I just think they're going to win.
All right.
I mean, they'll have a run. I think that if they make a wild card, they'll probably.
Yep. Did we lose him?
Yeah, he's out. He said they were going to win the championship, and that he loves them now.
Yeah, they for sure were going to win it all, and he would.
That's what I heard.
No, he bet me $20. You didn't hear that?
Yeah, and he said he'd give me whatever I wanted to drink for a year.
Yeah. Are you back?
Am I having connection problems?
Yeah, you went out there.
Nope.
Right when you wanted your analysis, you froze.
You're good.
So.
Oh crap.
No, we got it.
So.
It's recorded now.
Yeah, we thought we heard you
Oh,
say...
whatever you said. I concur with whatever you said.
Okay, there you go.
All right,
we got it.
You heard it here.
That's on the podcast.
All right, let's move on to EBS is our next team here. Pretty much clinched, not technically, but they'd have to put up like a 30 spot and three other teams would have to put up 130 for them to not get in. So should be in here, but they could also win the division still. They could win the division by beating Black Widows and a Dad Dicks loss, or a loss and a Dad Dicks loss, but they outscored Dad Dicks by 12. They would still get in. So that said, Anthony, I know you've you won your game here 98-70, which brings you to 9-6. Do you feel good? Like, do you feel lucky that the Assassins only put up 70 on you this week? I know. You like to bask in all the good luck your team gets here. So you played the second lowest scoring team this week. That's got to make you feel pretty good.
I suppose. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. Like, I was a middle of the road team, so it could have went either way. I was probably the sixth highest scoring team, so I had a 50-50, and I won out on a 50-50.
I think 7th or 8th even.
No, Wiener, Sabres, Dad Dicks, and Touchdown and Mediocrity all scored less than him.
There were 6 teams that scored more than you, so you were 7th.
Middle of the road.
6 teams in the hundreds.
Right.
So again, a middle of the road, so then I suppose it was more or less a coin flip, and it hit it. So great.
But I thought that kind of stuff never happens to you. I thought you always lose.
I've had some bad luck this season.
Okay.
Some bad luck as he could win the division title.
Yeah, he's sitting at 9-6.
Yeah. I've lost maybe 4 starting players on my team.
Oh,
and
we all wait for
terrible, you. and have had terrible breakdown percentage luck, but
you have had some injury. You have had some injury issues, that's for sure. I'll give you that.
So, what do you want to say about my team?
I don't know, man. What do you think? I mean, you don't think so? You've got. We were talking to me on IM. You've got 2 scenarios mapped out. Why don't you share those scenarios with the listening audience here?
All right. So this is the reason why Andy screwed me.
Okay.
So as a likely wild card winner, I will go up against likely TDJ, and I'm likely to lose that game, by the way, given my quarterback situation and his wide receiver situation. But even if I were to win that,
you have the second best quarterback in the league.
That throws to TDJ's wide receiver. So even if I were to,
that's true.
Yep, almost exclusively.
So even if I were to win that game, right, then I would have to go up against Evan in a 1-game playoff where he has very good matchups. So even if I win, I have 2 very, very, very difficult games just to make the championship game. Now, on the other hand, if I had beaten Andy in Week 9, I would be the division winner. I would be the likely division winner. In which case, I would get the bye in the wild card, and then I have to go up against Dave. Does not have great Week 14 matchups, and his team is not like
that's
really
not what it was,
right?
Now. Yeah.
So that means that I would have a pretty good shot at making the championship game, just from that Week 9 loss. So those are my 2 scenarios, and Andy, I hate you.
I was worried that you were because you weren't on the podcast that following week, and then we didn't do one. I was worried you were in like a padded room writing like formulas on the wall on how you were going to win the championship or not win it, or like.
Never again. Come on, he's never writing a formula on why he's going to win. Come on,
yeah.
You ever watch the game?
He
with
loves
this guy?
his splatter charts and stuff, So.
It'd be a splatter chart.
Splatter chart.
So Hiller's EBS, he's been one of the strongest teams. I mean, again, it's one of those lineups we keep saying. It's you look at it, you're not scared of it.
Why is this team winning, right?
The dude puts up points, man. Every week he's putting up points.
Well, enough points to have won enough games so that now he's not in danger of not making the playoffs. I mean, we always say you just got to make the playoffs, you know, and after that, who the hell knows?
Yep.
So.
Oh wait! Don't downplay the number of points I've scored.
You scored a lot of points. Gio Bernard worked out good. I don't know if you're going to keep him at $43 next year, but he did pretty well.
I'm the third highest in points, fourth, and I'm 11 points behind the number 2 guy, and I'm the second highest in breakdown percentage. But sadly, I'm
So is
tied
it that,
for,
or are you riddled with injuries and have problems with your matchups?
I'd like to say I've also.
You gotta pick one or the other here, guy.
I've also been unlucky in the breakdown, so I should be one game better. So I'd also like to say that.
Okay.
So
not me.
The
fact that I'm even in the conversation is an atrocity. So, but you've had some good luck. If I was going to do what I was doing for other people and guess your keepers, I would say Matt Stafford is a no-brainer, and Marshawn Lynch is a no-brainer. After that, I don't know. I kind of like Keenan Allen for your receivers.
Sure, yeah.
And then who knows, check the off-season hype. And then that's probably about it. I mean, maybe one more receiver in there, but...
Well, I'm keeping the quiz show, baby.
I guess you could.
I don't know that.
And I'm going to change my name to Pop Quiz Hotshot with 2 Z's.
I would, if it wasn't in your control, I would bet that you're not going to keep Jaquiz Rogers. But
it is. He only costs $2.
Control, so
and if Steven Jackson isn't there next year, then who knows? Maybe this is the next superstar.
Well, Merrill, we're going to have to test your theory on that one.
Bet on it.
Okay.
Test is a synonym for quiz.
Add to.
I get it. Should we test it? We could test it.
Don't do that.
If I'm not running a joke into the ground, then what's my purpose on this podcast? How about to move things along? Dad Dicks is our next team. They lose to the Black Widows 105-84. The Jimmy Breezes played San Francisco. Bad matchup.
Oops.
Low points, and therefore they lose. So 9-6, but first place in the division by 11 points. Here's what they need to win the division. They need to just win their game and have an EBS loss, or match the EBS in the win or loss, but EBS not outscore them by 12. So if any of that happens, they win the division. Otherwise, they're most likely in wild card spot. It would be crazy, just absolute craziness if they did not get into the playoffs. So I think a lot of us like them as a playoff team, and looks like we're going to be correct on at least one thing this year. So that said, Hillers, this was, I think, your champion.
I had him, I think, I'm not positive, but I think beating Evan in the championship, and that's starting to rear its head, like some sort of twisted prophecy.
Right.
But, I mean, obviously this week just showed something we already knew, which is that, you can spell the Achilles heel on this team, B-R-E-E-S. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, and where that goes, the team goes with it. If he'd have had a great week, probably would have meant 2 touchdowns to Graham, and he would have been fine. Yep. Decker and guys like, Le'Veon Bell didn't really come through enough to win this game, but I think this is a very solid wild card contender. At this point, he's going to have a couple of tough lineup decisions. I think Chris Johnson is going to plague him to the end of his days.
Yeah, he hates him, but
how do you not?
So, Anthony, if it wasn't for a 30-point performance from his Bengals defense, you'd be in first place right now in the division by points for. Is this a team? You've kind of mapped out your playoff scenarios already, I guess, but what do we think? They rely on Breeze and Graham a lot. Is that going to hurt them in the playoffs, or what?
No, because if he wins the division, he only really has one playoff game to play, and that's versus Dave now. And Dave in the playoffs is the least scariest team, I think. So basically, Danny's gonna be moonwalking into the championship thanks to Andy, and who cares? Whatever.
Who
There it is.
cares?
Who cares?
No, but
Why even play the games?
I know we always just talk about Breeze and Graham, but the guy has had some good pickups, and he's got some relatively solid, potentially solid wide receivers, and guys like Terrence Williams and Eric Decker. And Jordan Reed, if the Redskins could ever get their passing game together, he would be a recipient of it. So
Yeah.
we'll see. It depends
Concussed
on
now,
his
so we'll see if he plays. But
But a decent cast of supporting characters around a couple of studs, which,
yeah.
that sounds like a potentially winning team to me.
Yep.
This
All right,
was a horribly underperforming week, though.
Yeah, thank goodness. Dave's team is our next team. We got 2 teams left, two clinchers. We won't spend too much time here, but Dave lost to Hillers, and maybe this is the beating of the week. 122-73. He goes to 10-5, but he has clinched his division. We've kind of mentioned that this team might not be as strong as they were a couple of weeks ago, and Dave sent out a message board post that I guess it was kind of in a Jeopardy question format in some way, but it took me a while to figure that one out, by the way. Fading down the stretch here. Yeah.
What do you need, Merrill?
I don't know. So, Anthony, fading down the stretch here, Dave's team, you think he's going out in the semis, right?
I do think that is the case. Okay. I'm surprised he's still starting Dalton over Luck. I think that's going to change from here on out.
That was weird, right?
I didn't get it, but
they were pretty close. It might have just been a matchup thing.
Yeah, but still, you don't trade away your number one wide receiver, and at that a top 5 wide receiver to not start the guy that you traded him for.
Well, I can see not believing in A.J. Green as much with Joe Hayden from Cleveland on him. You know what I mean? But
Marvin Jones scored.
But other than that, I mean, the Bengals are still.
But he started Dalton. I mean, why would you
that's what I'm saying. I mean, it's like that. That's the only reason I would think that would be a terrible decision is just because of one dude.
And Luck versus Tennessee. Tennessee's given up.
There's less than 4 points separating the guy's actual performances. I mean, as an ownership decision, whatever. And he did trade his number 1 receiver, but then he went and got another one. So,
Yeah. I don't know. I'm with you, Ant. I don't get it. But wouldn't have made a difference here.
Nope. Not even close.
I don't know. But, yeah, so, I don't know. Dave's got a good team, good run, kind of. We've been poo-pooing his team all year, but, again, he's another team that's been putting up wins. And
it's not just a good run, though. I mean, I don't think you guys are really giving credit where it's due to some of the moves here. I mean, Eddie Lacy didn't look like very much of a decent running back selection, and pretty much only cost what he cost because of running back scarcity in the draft. And now that he's coming on, especially with Aaron Rodgers hurt.
What do you mean he didn't look like a good running back selection? What do you mean by that?
I mean that I don't think that if we were ranking all the running backs in the draft independent of cost, that people would have put Eddie Lacy too high because the running backs have been throwing 60 times a game for years and years and years, and he wasn't even the clear number 1 at that point. But at the time Dave bought him, he was one of like 3 running backs that anyone had even heard of, like left, and so he went for way more than he might have if he'd have gone at a different round of the draft, and he ended up panning out. He did make that trade for Marshall and Amendola. He secured himself a legacy quarterback there, so I think he set himself up, even if he doesn't make the championship this year, as a team that none of us thought would even make the playoffs, and then also has a good solid team for next year. You know what I mean? So I know he's been sliding a little bit lately, but and even guys like Marvin Jones and stuff, things have been panning out for him, and I wouldn't be surprised if he managed to pull off a victory, particularly if the 49ers had a good week in Week 14. So.
Okay. Yeah, maybe. Our final. Our final. I'll disagree with you on Eddie Lacy. I just don't have time to get into it. But
all right, we'll do it later.
That was pretty bad about Lacy, man.
I'm not sure what exactly you mean.
And it was pretty bad about Marvin Jones.
He's going to be running like crazy with
he's
Scott
great, but
saying
he wasn't
Packers.
Saying he was a savvy pickup. I mean, sure he was savvy, but anyway, the stuff around that didn't make sense to me. Anyway, Sex Cannons are our final team here. How are you guys just skipping them all together? Evan's waited this long to hear about his team. What do you say we just say?
Yeah, let's skip it.
Okay.
Yes.
Done.
Hey,
no.
I think we should. I mean, Evan doesn't feel like picking. Evan can win without a kicker. Fuck it. Well, then we'll just. Well,
then he'll win without a review too. Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Exactly. We'll do a podcast without the Sex Cannons. How about that?
Yeah. Damn you and your hopes.
Hey, the one thing I'll say about both Evan and Dave's team is that I don't want a three-peat championship dude here.
A pox on both their
Yeah,
houses.
it could be
that just
if one
sets
of
the
them
bar
win it.
one higher for me. So
That
no,
would be the third by those teams. Yeah, that's right. Ugh.
neither one.
To have Dave, Evan, Anthony, and Pritchard in the playoffs again. Oh God.
Go Dad Dicks.
Yeah, right.
Get
Seriously.
it up, Grimes.
I'll root for Dad Dicks then.
Yeah.
If it's not going to be me.
All right. Well, at least Anthony's only got one, even though he complains all the time. Rules discussion, guys. Let's get into this a little bit. Hopefully this won't take forever, but just wanted to cover the message board post that Watson put out there about getting rid of defense and kickers altogether because they're too random. Me and Anthony discussed it a little bit pre-podcast, and I haven't been keeping up with the messages on the message board, but Hillers, or Anthony, let's start with you, Ashley, since you were first to sign on here. If you can concisely state your thoughts on that particular bullet point, and just let us know what you think there.
I don't know, what position in fantasy football is not random? I mean, I think Evan had the best argument. I mean, you can't predict running backs either. Let's just get rid of the running back position. And the whole damn game is random. You can only put yourself in the best position to win.
Says the guy who's predicted the whole playoff scenario, by the way.
Yeah, and I'm right.
1 week out. Come on.
I'm right on my predictions, by the way.
Okay, we'll see.
But
I'll bet you're not right.
But the whole thing is chance. So I mean, I guess I don't really understand the fundamentals of the argument. I agree that they're not like the sexiest like slot positions in the fantasy game, other than Phil Dawson. Have you seen his photo? But in general,
Sean Sweezum. It's a good-looking guy.
Grr, baby.
Don't be gross, Hillers.
I'm just can't appreciate aesthetically.
So, okay.
Yeah,
So overall, you think everything's pretty random. So why just single out kicker and defense?
yeah, exactly.
Okay. Killers?
Yeah, and I would add to that, just because he doesn't bother looking into them doesn't mean that they are a total floating mystery.
Well, you don't
to
know
everybody.
that he doesn't bother looking into them.
He said
Well,
it.
if he said it was
it.
entirely unpredictable with no way of knowing what a defense was going to do, then I will tell you, he is not looking into them. And if he wants to have a little more clarity, then stop doing team defenses altogether and let's go to IDP. Because I know those guys have clarity. If you were going to do something called team offense, it would be even more widely fluctuating than anything called team defense. And his argument that, we don't pay a lot for them, so they must be worthless, is ludicrous. I mean, that makes no sense. That's a completely circular. It's like, well, if I found a bunch of idiots willing to pay $1 for a gold brick and I paid $2, it doesn't make it worthless. You know what I mean? It just means that they don't understand its value. So.
So let me comment on that real quick on that point. So what you pay for in fantasy is you pay for a value over replacement, right? So the reason we pay a lot for running backs and wide receivers and quarterbacks to a certain degree, but not as much, is that if you lose your starting running back, you're not going to be able to go pick up a guy on waivers for a couple of bucks or $1 that can replace him that you feel is even close to the guy you lost, right?
Unless his name is Bobby Rainey.
Whereas, well, that costs
Right.
Killers $30. But
Compared to
whereas
CJ
if you
Spiller.
lose your defense, which nobody really does because there's always that defense starts every week, you can go and pick up another defense for $1 the next week, right? So the reason you pay more for these other players is for position scarcity, and fantasy is all about value over replacement, replacement level. So I do disagree with him that because they cost less, they're not important. I mean, they're not predictable. I mean, those are two different arguments, I feel like. But so that's where the value thing comes in for me. I mean, that's the reason you pay more for, because kickers are among the highest scoring people in fantasy, and the defenses as well. But the difference is you can go pick up one that's really not that much worse off waivers.
Well, sure, but it's also a position where you can get yourself a bigger comparative advantage by paying more attention to lesser positions throughout the course of the season. I mean, there's not a whole lot left, outside of unusual circumstance on waivers for running backs. But teams that want to ignore defenses will eventually pay a price for that. I mean, there's 12 teams in the league, meaning
Would you
that if
consider
everybody
me
valued
somebody who
defense,
ignores
there
defense?
would be 24 different, people 24 different defenses typically on a roster, and then you wouldn't have value over replacement. But if 6 teams ignore it, suddenly it's easy to pick up a backup, so they're not worthwhile. I mean, still, it just goes back to you can still get an advantage there if you're willing to play a strategy. It's just a question of how much free agent money you're willing to spend or how much draft money you're willing to spend. And that option should be available to everybody.
Yeah. I'll say that apparently I have the highest scoring defense on the year as far as how the year has gone, and I'm someone who believes that defense is. No, I've got the first couple of weeks I played matchups, and then I ended up rolling with the Panthers. So
nice.
That's been
good defense
working out for me. But what I will say is if you look back at statistical evidence year to year and you look at preseason defensive rankings versus how and this goes for kickers too, versus how things ended up at the end of the year, those are among the most not sure what the word is, but they're different. What's the word I'm looking for, Hillers? But
representative.
Yeah, sure. They're among the most, and this gets into the unpredictability, right? Like so, you
kickers. I agree. Defense, it's only just a result of them being a team
defense becomes predictable, I think, a couple of weeks in because preseason it's hard to know because you've got a lot of scheme changes, you've got personnel changes, you don't know what kind of offenses are going to be out there, you don't know how the matchups are going to be. But 3 or 4 weeks in, you can start to tell. All right, this defense is legit. The offenses they're playing in their upcoming weeks are not legit, so this is a defense I want to go get.
So let's reward the owner willing to go out and look for that and spend some money on it. I'm all about that always.
Where I will disagree is that a lot of defensive points come from interceptions, fumble recoveries. There's no skill involved in fumble recovery statistically. If you look in the history of football over time, teams are 50% as likely. It's 50-50 on which teams recover fumbles over the course of a season. That's just how the stats lay out.
If you want to replace that with tackles, then you've got me on your side. Absolutely.
Well, you can't really do
some
that
sort of tackles measure.
With team defense, you can't really do that. But
I mean,
that's where kind of some of the randomness comes in, and maybe there's a way we can limit that scoring to become a more representative number. But I will say that. Anthony, you're kind of quiet on this, or you just?
I don't know. What can we say that hasn't already been said about predictability of kickers and defenses? I think it's been an ongoing debate that will never be solved between all of us. And
because I will set myself on fire if someone tries to take off the defenses.
Right.
And I applaud Brad's thinking about variants of our rule, but this one is probably a bad idea.
Yeah. Kickers, I'll say, are pretty much a crapshoot. There is a very, 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 very small level of predictability in that teams that score more tend to have higher scoring kickers. There may be some basis to that, but I haven't run all the numbers on that, so I'm not entirely sure. But I will say if an offense can't move the ball, they're not going to get field goals. So that seems to be.
Who's the Jags kicker? I bet he sucks.
Yeah. So me and Anthony kind of talked about that prior to the podcast. We both kind of agree. I would like to have a bad red zone team. That's the kicker I go for personally. It's a team that's bad in the red zone because if they can get to the red zone but can't punch it in, I'll take the 3 points instead of the.
Any other rule changes that people come up with that were worthy of note, or you think are something we could yell at each other about for another couple of minutes here? Or?
Well, I have just 2 quick things really. Is that I don't think the bonus points. We toyed with getting rid of them last year or for this year, and we put them back in. And I just don't agree with the rich get richer kind of attitude. And I'll go back to maybe week 8 when Calvin Johnson puts up 50 points.
That was the biggest number I'd ever seen out of a wide receiver.
Who did he do that against, by the way?
It was against me.
Oh, okay. I just want to say.
And I still would have lost, without the bonus points. But the thing is, let's say the game were closer. How can anybody make up 50 points at any position? It's just you can't do it. Even if I had a solid, 20.
Yeah. Your quarterback would have had to score. What did Peyton Manning do when he put 7 touchdowns up? Was that even 50 points?
63, I think.
63. Okay, so yes.
Yeah, Nick Foles was.
And that was what, 4 more touchdowns? That's ridiculous.
Yeah, Nick Foles was 60 points. It's just the thing is you can't. Actually, to be honest, that one didn't even have bonus points involved in it. That's a whole different story.
Yeah. What
but
the hell? It's the best game of football ever thrown.
But the rich get richer thing just doesn't help any. It doesn't help because you can't. The opposing team just cannot overcome it. And then as far as that's one thing for maybe later discussion. And the other piece is, God, the Nick Foles 7 touchdowns thing. Now, granted, that doesn't happen very often, but again, how do you
ever? It's happened 6 other times in NFL history.
How do you overcome 60 points out of a quarterback?
You don't.
You don't.
You're not supposed to.
You never will. You're not supposed to overcome it. It's the greatest passing game of history.
Yeah.
It's unovercomable. That's just bad luck. You can't do anything about that.
The one thing I will put out for discussion, and not that I necessarily agree with it, is do we reduce quarterback points somehow?
Never.
To try to get things a little bit more equivalent. In our league put up way more points than anybody else. And case in point, EJ Manuel, who was on Hiller's bench this week.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Had a pretty like ho-hum. Yeah. He had a pretty ho-hum day.
I know I still own that guy.
No, Nick's bench.
I'm sorry, Nick's bench. It was 245 yards, 2 touchdowns. But he still put, which is solid. But
slightly above average, right?
It's not 22. So that ended up being 22.7 points.
Yeah.
And 22.7 points is like an outrageous day for a running back or a wide receiver.
Quarterbacks are more accounting of the team's offensive success than any other position, and their fantasy scoring reflects that appropriately.
Well, don't make that argument.
Because 245 yards and 2 touchdowns
would
be like a 45-point performance from some of your other players.
That doesn't work in fantasy.
And it applies equally to everybody. It's not like some guys' quarterbacks, are scoring a higher percentage or rate of points than another guy's quarterbacks. It's the same for everybody. Trying to tinker with it isn't going to change the problem that you're experiencing at all, that quarterbacks score points. They just do. Okay? If you say everybody gets less points, you've changed nothing, because the competitive advantage is the same. It's just going to look ridiculous.
It's not
because we'll have 30-point defenses and 15-point quarterbacks.
It's not the same. Here's the difference, right?
So here's where I think you're wrong, is that you reduce the variance, right? So you reduce everybody equally, but now you have a tighter variance in the overall scores on the team, because one guy isn't maybe skyrocketing points more than he should. So
I like having a guy the only guy that has one of him that you can play at his position, has the ability to change your team comparable to, the 2 or 3 guys that you can put up for running backs or tight ends. You know what I memean? I think that's wholly appropriate, that you should shoot for an elite at that position. That's reflective of the game, and it works. It hasn't ever let anybody down.
Why does ESPN standard scoring give 4 points for a touchdown then? That's considered standard fantasy scoring. Why does our league, why do you side with 6 points?
It's also standard on CBS.
It's the devil's own work.
It's also standard on CBS and on NFL.com.
Okay, well, why not just say, well, that's the way we've done everything before? We have all kinds of unique rules in this league based on long experience of things that work and are justified and good.
and we've changed them, and we've changed rules. This used to be a snake draft 3-keeper, league that had all kinds of different rules. So we've changed them in the past. I would honestly be for looking at that. Maybe just bringing quarterback touchdowns down to 5 points. Kind of a happy medium there. But because, like you were saying, Anthony, here's the thing: EJ Manuel 245, 2 touchdowns. That's slightly above average, maybe for a quarterback, right? So a slightly above average day for a running back is what, 15 points? So that's 7 extra points you get for a slightly above average day.
Why should the guy that you only get one position be exactly equivalent to the ones where you can put 2 or 3 of them up?
Well,
why is that absolutely necessary?
You only get one tight end. How does that argument work?
Because a tight end is less important to the game. It's less
Tell
involved
that to
in a
Jimmy Graham
team's
and the
success,
Saints.
and
Tell
less.
that to Rob Gronkowski and the Patriots.
Okay, tell that to the number one receiver in the league. You pick the one team. You can't argue that tight ends are as important as quarterback with any sort of legitimacy.
No.
At all.
Right.
At all.
But you also can't make the argument that we should make our points match real football. Fantasy football is not real football.
No, I agree. But a quarterback position is more important, and it deserves to have a little bit more importance. It's more important, and you get less of them. So that's the decision you got to get right. There's a good reasons to make that a little bit different than other positions.
Well, we disagree on what are good reasons, but
fair enough.
That's an opinion. But
also, I will set myself on fire.
I know. It's just funny. You and Nick are going to be the guys who want the quarterback points, and well, Nick.
I don't know why Nick would want it. His quarterbacks suck.
Well, he realizes now why we were fighting against it. Now that he let Drew Brees go.
No, but I mean, quarterbacks are special. You only get one. You got to pick one.
Any other rules?
The only thing was the keeper fee. I know Nick's going to try to bring that up again, I think, next year. Is there you guys have any issues with our keeper structure that we have in our league?
Not until I hear a specific idea that's better than this one.
Yeah.
And once people see as what I think is going to be one of our, on the deeper end of drafts next year compared to what was definitely on the shallow end of drafts this year, I think they'll see that we're not really inhibiting too much choice from year to year by having this structure over a structure with unlimited keepers.
I would like to be able to keep 8 players next year.
I bet you would.
Throw that out there.
And 3 running backs, I'm sure.
Yes.
But the teams that only have 3 are gonna be put in a pretty bad way by that.
Yeah.
You might as well drive the stake into the heart of teams like Brett. You know what I mean? If you want to say we just keep as many as we like. So.
Yeah. No, I have no issues with our keeper structure. I'm the one who came up with it, obviously. So
you better not, right?
Yeah. So no, I think that's it. I mean, I don't really have anything else.
I would remind the league, anybody that's listening, to come up with whatever you think your favorite social contributions are. Try to come up with 1 or 2 that you really thought were hilarious. The rule, is that it's a single entry. I think we're okay saying a single podcast for this one, and if you want to give extra weight to it because we've been here week after week, putting it down, doing our best to analyze and entertain, then, who am I to stop you? It's your vote. But the official submissions, just like the Academy Awards, it'll be, one particular entry. So, start thinking of what you thought was great.
Now, Hillers, do we email those to you, and then you
email them
to
me?
Big poll?
Email them to me. I will put up the nominees, and then we'll have a period of successive voting where the ones with the least votes get eliminated, and as soon as it's obvious that they're gone, and then we'll move forward. In terms of periods of voting, we'll obviously want to try to get it done while the playoffs and the toilet bowl are still getting on. So depending on how many nominees we have, will probably depend on how long those votes are up. But we'll take them from everybody. Tried to keep it. Well, it's a lot of work for me, but I like it. So it's just all you have to do is pick 1 or 2 things that you think were the best social contributions for the year, and email
For example,
them to me.
maybe like the one of you with a leash around your neck with a girl with your wife tugging.
I think Nick's rendition of Hiller's
or this guy.
very funny.
Remember this guy?
Yes.
I also think
everybody liked this guy. Maybe that thing. Yeah, he took a
don't
little
forget,
while to build, longer than a Photoshop, one might argue.
Don't
Just
forget
saying.
the creative genius mind behind the Hanker simulator.
It's true. It's very true. Oh, the behind the scenes we're saying.
Behind, yeah, or Hanker Simulator will accept prizes in his own name too. Just,
all right.
I'm his executor.
Right. Power rankings, gentlemen.
All right, let's get this done quick.
Let's get it
because we
done.
basically already said it.
Yeah, is it not obvious?
I don't think so. I mean, we'll run through it real quick.
Who starts?
Just
Me?
do the full list.
All right, here I'm going to start because I'm talking.
All right.
Wingye, Masters of Elegance at 12, Shoops at 11, PBJ at 10, Le Tigre at 9. The Ocho belongs to Assassins. 7 goes to Hillers. 6 to the Black Widows. 5 to Touchdown Jesus. 4 to EBS. 3 to the Duplex. 2 to Dad Dix, and 1 to Thou That Shall Not Be Named.
All right. Hillers.
I have Winier at 12, Chupanibre at 11, PBJ at 10, Tigres at 9, myself at 8, EBS at 7, Dad Dix at 6.
Whoa.
For this week, you got Marshawn Lynch on a bye. What do you want from me?
And
Your team's
Gio
gonna probably. Yes, that's not good for you at all.
All right, okay.
Okay. All right. Dad Dix at 6, Assassins at 5. I still have some hope for them. Duplex at 4. You know, they're going to crush their opponent for sure. Widows at 3.
Whoa!
Yep. Your team is one of the better teams in the league right now. TDJ, it's just that I'm not going to win, so you're coming down with me. TDJ at 2, and the team that shall not be named.
All right. I've got 12. I've got the Choop. At 11, I've got PBJ, and at 10, I've got the Winier, who have been surprisingly better these past few weeks, though nobody's noticing. At 9, I've got the Tigers. At 8, I've got Hillers. At 7, I have the Assassins. At 6, I have the Black Widows. At 5, I've got EBS. 4, I've got Dad Dix. 3, I've got Dave's team. At 2, I have TDJ. And I've got, I forget who I have at 1. So,
okay.
Predictions real quick?
We already gave them in detail.
Oh, who's going to win this week?
Oh.
Do we want to say? Or do you guys know? I mean, we'll just...
All right.
We'll run through
Richard, Widows, Assassins. Oh, wait. Wrong week.
Yeah,
Wait.
Hold on. All right, Black Widows, End Zone Bombardment Squad. Who we got? Widows?
Widows.
Anthony?
Widows.
All right. Dad Dix at Assassins. What do we think?
Dix.
I'm taking Assassins. I think they pull it out here to give Anthony the division. Hiller's Epidemic at Touchdown Jesus.
Pritchard. As much as I hate it.
TDJ.
Yeah, TDJ.
Ugh.
No. Hillers. I'm taking Hillers.
Okay,
The
all
Widows
right.
are getting in, baby. I'm not quitting now.
Your optimism is just painful.
Winier at the Duplex of Mediocrity.
Plex.
I don't know. Tower.
Tower? Who's the Tower?
Duplex.
Yeah. God sakes, Dave's team. I want to pick the Winier. I do.
Let's do it. Let's pick the Winier, all three of us.
All right.
No, I'm not going to do it.
I'm doing it.
No, he doesn't deserve. No, he's already got more than he
with you.
deserved by having the most points against through no fault of his own and getting $35 for that. So
that makes no sense. Okay, Winier. Sabertooth Tigers versus
consolation prize.
PBJ in the big Who Cares match of the week.
This is the big hook, and it's also the closest one. Yeah, so PBJ. And a feel good one of the week.
Wow.
I'm going with Brett.
I'm going with Nick. Ugh.
So much disgust for your picks.
And then
you wanted to do this part.
I'm picking the Chupanibres to win their final game this week also. How about you guys?
Yeah, Chupanibres, they're not playing anybody.
Yeah, they got to bye this week.
Yeah,
so.
It's basically, yeah.
Right, Anthony?
Chupanibres?
I'm dead in the water here, guys.
Yeah.
He agrees.
Chupanibres.
Right.
He agrees. All right.
Well, good luck on your season-long bets there, Anthony. We hope they pan out for you.
Yeah. Way to. Thanks for mapping everything out for us.
We really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
All right. We'll close out here for Anthony and the guy lurking in the background in the scary mask. For Hillers. And for this is Mike saying we will talk to you guys later.